Alright, we're going to do a bunch of different plank variations in this video. I'm sure that even if you've never stepped in the gym before, you've probably heard people talk about planks and you kind of have an idea about what it might be, and that you probably heard that it's some kind of like hardcore, ab exercise or whatever, and that the longest, there's like a Guinness World Book record of people holding planks for like 8 hours or something like that. All right, planks are very valuable. They are. They're a great exercise to strengthen your core and to kind of teach you how to do the posterior tilt, to teach you how to do some of that extension with your abs that we don't really get a lot of. However, planks get done wrong all the time, and doing them wrong can really, put you in a worse place than you were previously. They can mess you up. So I'm going to show you the right way to do them, and then we'll show you some different ways how to do them to spice it up. So, basically what you're gonna, the concept that you basically need to follow, the principle that you need to follow is maintaining that posterior tilt, just like with pretty much all your other abs exercises. I might need to move this down so you can see better. I hope that works. Dang it. Alright, hopefully this works. Alright. So, for just a regular plank, you're going to go on your forearms and your toes. And how you choose to get into the plank is up to you. I mean, if you want to start like this and then raise, or if you want to start from the ground and raise like that, it's really up to you. But before you get into that position, you want to really make sure that your toes are rooted into the ground. You really want to make sure that your elbows and your hands are rooted into the ground. How you do your hands is up to you. If you want to do like fists like this, or if you want to do palms in the ground. Some people do better with fingertips. I mean, it's whatever's best for you to just keep you as stable as you can be through your points of contact. So, toes, elbows, hands, posterior tilts. I'm going to establish some intra-abdominal pressure. So I'm going to kind of push my abs down into my hips to create a sheet of muscle in the front. And then I'm going to raise up my knees. Whoop, just like that. And you'll see, I think you might have just been able to tell, like I sort of adjusted myself when I first came up a little bit. And that's fine, just as long as you're not, coming up like this, and then you're sort of applying pressure through like your low back and stuff. If you're not perfect on the way up and for the first, second or two, that's fine, because you're going from one position to another. But just make sure that you're in the best possible position that you can put yourself into before you start to move. Because over time, if you're in the middle of a sweaty workout or whatever, and you've already done 4 sets of planks, and this is your last one, and you're really trying to push it, and you're already thinking about what's after your workout or whatever, and here you are, and you're down on the ground, and you just let yourself slip into an anterior tilt, and you just never know, man. Injuries, they call them accidents for a reason. Injuries happen when you least expect them to happen. So you're gonna get sick of hearing me say these words, but like really just make sure, even if it's not a perfect position that you do have to sort of tweak when you start your set, put yourself in the best possible position that you can put yourself in before you move your body through space. All right? So one more time, you're going to go establish your position. You're going to push through your points of contact, come up, make any little adjustments you need to, and now you're going to hold. And so, sort of similar to some of the principles that I talked about for weighted carries. My shoulders, just like with the weighted carries, are going back. Okay? You'll notice that I'm not sagging into my shoulders. All right? I'm engaging my shoulders. Okay? What else? Me in particular, you know, I'm imbalanced, so I have that tilt, that lateral tilt in my pelvis. So that's something that I can feel when I'm up in this position. I can feel my pelvis tilting kind of this way. So I'm just sort of emphasizing twisting it the other way to sort of even out, because the reason that my pelvis is twisting is because one of my hips is so much stronger than the other, or is always engaged. You know, I have one hip that just doesn't know when to stop contracting. All right? And so the reason that I'm countering that is because this isn't a hip exercise, it's a core exercise. And even though your hips are connected to your core, kind of like I told you in the last video with the hip thrusts and stuff, your hip flexors can take over for your core. And your hip flexors are the things that do this, which is the position that your legs are in when you sit. Okay? So when you sit, your hip flexor is doing constant work, and it makes it harder to extend your hips and to stand up straight when that happens. So that's why we don't want to work our hips. We don't want our hips to do the work. We don't want momentum to do the work. Okay, we want to feel our core working. And so you may have an imbalance. Like maybe you have, for example, on your meniscus knee, you know, you may have a harder time digging into the ground with that respective foot, because maybe you have a harder time creating tension with that whole leg. So you're probably going to notice a little bit of lateral tilt, or you're probably going to notice one side working harder than the other. And so what you're going to need to do is, if you notice you have a leg that's working harder than the other, you're going to really, really need to start trying to engage the opposite side to get it more involved. And if you work that core and those deep muscles on the opposite side, you know, it'll work down the rest of your leg, if in fact, you know, that's kind of the predicament that you're in. So anyway, just, you know, that a shorter way, I guess, of saying that is, when you're up in that plank, if you feel anything besides like your abs doing the brunt of the work, then you probably need to sort of like try to gauge and see, well, you know, where's the majority of my tension at? Is it in my hips? Is it maybe in my shoulders? Like, am I maybe doing too much with my shoulders? Like, am I I don't know, like maybe I'm sagging my shoulders, and that's causing my hips to have to take on more load because my core isn't strong enough to take on the added workload that my shoulders are not doing by me sagging them. So now my core has to work harder, but my core is not strong enough, so now my hips have to take over. And now my hips are working really hard, so that's why I can't feel my core working. But it's because of my shoulders. All right? So this is, again, like, I could go on for days, but that's part of the reason why exercises like weighted carries and exercises like planks are so valuable, because they can really give you a lot of insight into your posture and into any muscular imbalances that you have. All right? So what I was just showing you It's officially called an RKC plank, which stands for Russian Kettlebell Challenge. The difference between an RKC plank and 9 out of 10 planks that you'll see like on, you know, fitness websites or whatever that's just plank, is RKC plank, Russian Kettlebell Challenge plank, emphasizes that irradiation throughout your body. All right, so normal people will tell you, oh, you know, do a plank for a minute, do a plank for 2 minutes, you know, Guinness Book of World Records guy, 8 hours, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you Google a picture of him or a video clip of him or whatever, guess what you're gonna see? You're gonna see this motherfucker like this here. I'm doing so much work. It's like, no, dude, you're fucking like, you're tearing up your ligaments and your tendons, and, you know, you're making your skeleton like, you know, bone on bone grind, and, you know, you're hyperextending shit that's not supposed to be like that. All right, like, you're not doing anything, dude, except looking like a jackass to people who actually know what a plank is. Okay, I'm sorry about my gum. I know that's kind of gross. So again, RKC plank, even if it's just 5-10 seconds to start, we are really focusing on total body irradiation. You know, like right now, not yet, but I can feel like I'm starting to tremble a little bit around the tops of my hips and around the front of my abs. My butt is starting to tremble a little bit because of how much I am tensing myself. All right, like I'm prepared. Like if a boxing glove came up out of the ground and hit me, I'm ready for it because of how tense I am. So, you know, don't get discouraged if you get in that position and, you know, 2 seconds later you're gasping for air and you're dripping sweat. That's a good thing. That means you're engaging a lot of muscle at the same time. And it's also, the other good news is you can always build up. All right. So that was basic plank, Russian Kettlebell Challenge plank, RKC, whatever you want to call it. Now we're going to go from, so I had 4 points of contact on that one. I had foot, and then I had forearm. All right. So I'm going to go from a 4-point plank to a 3-point plank, which is you just remove a point of contact, and it's whatever, you know, up to you, whatever you want to do. You can remove an arm, you can remove a leg. The only thing that I'm going to ask is that you balance your training as much as possible. So if you're looking to do 3-point planks and you're looking to do, you know, obviously do an even number, okay? Because I want you to do the same number on each side, unless you notice a significant imbalance from one side to the other. If you raise up your right arm and it's fine, but then you raise up your left arm and you're like, oh geez, that's way harder. Well, you know, maybe do an extra set every time you do this exercise on right arm with left arm out to balance yourself out. But I just don't want you to forget and to do all your sets on one side, you know, every single workout. I'm just telling you to alternate. So again, you're just going to take away a point of contact, be it an arm or a leg. Everything else is the same though. So, and I'm actually going to back up a little bit so I can show you better. So I'm going to do an arm. I'm going to do my right arm. So I got this, my tilt, I go up, and then I'm really going to shift some of my weight to the left side because I'm about to take away a point of contact on the right. So the left side is going to have to do more work. So shift a little bit of weight to the left, and when you're ready, boom. Okay? Now, my hips rotated a little bit, which is fine, but you want to minimize that as much as possible. And that's something else you can look for in terms of imbalances. Okay, so if you are doing arms and the side's like this, but then other side is like this, and you just completely flop over, that's something you need to work on. That means that left hip in that case doesn't have strong enough internal rotation, and that you're not engaging it enough to keep your body anchored when you make that movement. All right, also I guess I'll show you legs. With the legs, I mean, it's really up to you what you do. You can just lift it up a little bit. You know, you can lift it out to the side. You could stack your legs like this. You could maybe even bring your leg up like that. That's kind of an advanced one. Just whatever's comfortable. Next one I'm going to show you is a side plank. So this is also, it's another 3-point or 2-point plank, depending on how you position your feet. So you'll start on your side, and then I like to put my hand like this. You can put your hand like this. Some people put their arm up. It's really up to you. You're just going to come up like that. So my body is going to want to sag. So I really, really, really need to engage this side. So I'm pushing with this elbow and hand. I'm pushing with this bottom leg and foot into the ground. Now, my feet are one on top of the other. They're stacked. You don't have to do that. You can put this leg in front of that leg. You can put this leg behind. But whatever you do with your feet, you want to make sure that your hips are square. Okay, so you don't want your hips way out here. You don't want your hips way like this. You want them square, because what you're trying to replicate is good posture, right? And so when we stand with good posture, we don't stand like this, we don't stand like this, we stand with our hips square. So that's what we want to practice. Unless we're doing the next exercise, which is going to be a side plank with a hip rotation or with a hip drop. So same deal. We'll set up. Okay. So I had to establish my position on the ground before I came up, right? Had to dig this leg into the ground, dig this hand into the ground, brace my abs, maybe even take a breath, and then come up. So now I'm going to reestablish my position. I'm going to get in the best side plank I can, and then I'm going to, under control, rotate my hips. And I'm controlling the motion with the muscles in my hips and the muscles in my core. So it's not a very big range of motion, is it? That's fine, because if I wanted to use momentum, and if I wanted to use my tendons and my ligaments to do it, it would look a lot different. And again, you might step into a gym and see people, you know, doing all kinds of this shit like it's a freaking race. And it's like, what are you training? You're not training your muscles when you do that. So if you can't feel them working, they're probably not, or they're probably not working nearly to the extent that they could be. So if you cheat on a movement, you're really cheating yourself. And you're also setting yourself up for potential failure, not failure, for potential injury down the road, okay? So, again, it doesn't have to be a huge range of motion. You will feel when it's working. So you can do a hip rotation, and I should say this too, I'm initiating the movement with my bottom hip. So when I rotate, I start by bringing my bottom hip back, and then I come back by bringing my bottom hip forward. All right? So you can do a hip rotation. You can also do a hip drop. And just like everything else, we're going for slow and controlled. We're going for as much range of motion that you can manage without losing tension. So you want to be in control of your hip the whole time. If you feel like gravity is starting to take your hip down, then it's time to come up and, you know, maybe not go down as far next time. All right, so now we're gonna do, we got two more for this video. This is I don't have a better name for this. This is a plank with feet walking on glass, all right? So it's just gonna be conventional RKC type plank, but we're going to lift our feet up and down. And just like with the previous exercise, with the rotations and the drops, again, we want everything to be slow and controlled. We don't want to let momentum do our work for us. So that's why it's called feet walking on glass, because you want to picture yourself, you know, barely tapping those toes onto the ground. Okay, so get into that plank position, and then when you're ready, once you've established your position, you're going to lift, well, I should say before, you're going to shift your weight to the opposite side of the leg that you're going to lift. So I'm going to start with my right leg, so I'm going to shift to the left, and pick this up as far as I can without losing my tilt, and then I'm going to just barely kiss the glass under my feet. And then I'm going to shift to the right so I can pick up my left as far as I can go, and just a little bitty kiss. Now, something I will say with this one, don't think about bringing your legs up, think about bringing them back, okay? Think about extending that hip as open as you can. So I'll just show you, like, from this position here what I'm talking about. So right now my hip is closed like a door, okay? And when I bring my leg back, the door opens. You see that? Now, I also kind of have a door on the other side too, right? Right now, I guess you can consider it, I don't know, whatever. And I want to try to only open this door. So I want to keep this hinge basically in the same orientation that it's at as much as I can. So if I go up with my leg, watch what happens to my hinge. Bye-bye. But if I go back with my leg, okay, I know it looks kind of like that hinge is changing, but that's mainly because of my butt. That's mainly because I have kind of a big butt and it's coming up. But I guarantee you, my lower back is not, you know, I'm not doing an anterior tilt at all. So hopefully you can kind of see the difference. So when you're doing this exercise, like I said, don't think about bringing your legs up. Think about bringing them back. Because again, we want to create that extension in our abs to counter all of the crunching that we do when we sit all day. And now I've got one more for you, and this is a plank with a weight transfer. So you're going to get down in your plank and you're going to have a weight right next to you. And you're gonna, you see what I did there? So I came up, so the arm that the weight is next to, you're gonna come up so that you can create room for the other arm to come under and grab this weight and bring it to the side. Down, this arm up, grab, to the side, down. What you want to try to avoid is you want to try to avoid your hips going all over the place when you do this. So I'm trying to get to where you can kind of see my hips. So, I mean, there's going to be some rotation, naturally, obviously, but you want to keep it to a minimum. So as opposed to, here I'll do a bad example, as opposed to okay, that was a bad example. Hopefully you can see a difference between that and that. All right, so more than planks than you probably ever wanted to know. Still got a bunch more abs exercises to do, and we'll get to them in another video.